Okay, guys, welcome back to a brand new video here. Today, we're going to be talking about a brand new Piers Morgan panel where Kasparian absolutely dismantles fellow panelist Klay Travis, who basically is put in a position of, hey, whose side of this conservative civil war you on? You on the Tucker Carlson side or you on the Ben Shapiro side? And he completely deflects. And again, you really see what the kind of mindset of people like Klay Travis is, hey, whose side do you defend? And his immediate response is to go and defend Israel. So it kind of exposes what the whole game is here. It's not about anti-Semitism for a lot of people like Randy Fine. It's about the criticism of Israel that's completely not going to be allowed in parts of the party like Randy Fine, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, who don't seem to want any sort of criticism whatsoever, and apparently Klay Travis as well. And Kasparian absolutely dismantles him. And we're going to show the clip of this, and we'll talk about it in a second. And by the way, guys, if you're enjoying the content, make sure to like and subscribe. It's super good for the algorithm, and it helps out the channel immensely. And if you want to become a member, hit the join button below as well, Patreon below as well, and make sure to like and comment. Thank you guys so much for watching. Here's a clip of Kasparian just going off, and we'll talk about it in just a second.
Klay, I've got to ask you, whose side are you on in the big issue ripping apart the Republicans? Are you with Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens? Are you with Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh? I mean, it seems like the entire online conservative movement is ripping each other to pieces. Where do you sit with this?
Well, first of all, I'm a big proponent. As you remember, Piers, I'm currently banned on CNN for saying I only believe in two things completely: the First Amendment and boobs, which was 8 years ago. So I'm not kidding about this, I'm banned from CNN for saying that. So look, I think disagreement is actually healthy, and I think conflict is good. It's one reason I like your show. If people make good arguments on one side and the other arguments, and then we have a conflict, we end up in a better place. I actually, in that particular issue, look, I think Israel has the right to defend itself. I think that, unfortunately, there is an anti-Semitism that has risen on the right and has also risen on the left. It's why I've argued for a long time, Piers, we don't have so much of a political spectrum, left and right, as we do a big circle. And it is kind of interesting sometimes when leftists and rightists on extremes end up agreeing that Israel is awful and evil. I don't believe that, right? I think Israel is imperfect as every country that has ever been founded in the history of the world. But if Israel put down its weapons, it wouldn't exist in a week. If every other country put down their weapons, we would have peace in the Middle East. So in the context of October 7th, as we have continued since then, we have the right, Israel does, I believe, to defend itself. And I say that with not looking at it from a particular religious bent, but just on who has human rights in Israel, in the Middle East. It's gay people have rights in Israel. They don't have anywhere else. If you believe in human rights, you have to believe in Israel.
They can't get married, but sure.
Okay, I want to ask Anna on this point. The whole sort of crux of the argument is whether Tucker Carlson should have platformed Nick Fuentes. I have not chosen to platform Fuentes. I think he's a despicable human being who will simply use it to make himself even more notorious and richer. And I think you've got to have a line with some of these people. He disputes obvious anti-Semitic horror story stuff, and I don't think he should be given a platform. However, Tucker said, I'm entitled to. He is, and he did. Many think he got used and wasn't critical enough or whatever. But what do you feel, Anna, about that? Where is that line? Ben Shapiro says, no, you've got to have a moral purpose. You shouldn't be platforming people like that. Should I have someone like Fuentes on? Should there be lines about who we do and don't platform?
For me, the line is whether or not the individual spewing the disgusting, anti-Semitic, bigoted, racist rhetoric has an audience or influence of his own, and whether people want to believe it or like it or not. The fact of the matter is Nick Fuentes has grown a massive audience. Some of his live streams on Rumble attract hundreds of thousands of viewers, sometimes as many as 400,000. So I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding here in regard to who's platforming who. And Tucker Carlson, of course, has become a target because he has his own massive platform. He's tremendously influential. And, I'm sympathetic to the arguments that Tucker Carlson could have handled that exchange a lot better, right? He could have maybe come a little harder against Nick Fuentes. But anyone who listened to that interview and said that he didn't push back against Fuentes at all is lying. He did push back against Fuentes, and he focused on the fundamental distinction between the two of them. While Fuentes believes that there is an organized Jewry that is responsible for U.S. foreign policy, and that has led to, basically, it's the Jews' fault, right? That's the argument that he makes. Whereas Tucker Carlson is very careful and precise in the way he critiques the nation state of Israel and how it has not been beneficial for the United States taxpayer to have our foreign policy be so incredibly supportive and deferential to the Israeli government, regardless of what they engage in, regardless of the political makeup of that government. And so to me, that's the important distinction here. There are those who are legitimate anti-Semites, who are hateful, and they blame the Jews in general. I've got no interest in them. And then there are the Tucker Carlsons, who's been, I believe, inaccurately labeled as an anti-Semite because he's been so vociferous in his criticism of Israel. We should be able to be critical of Israel without that type of ridiculous, slander and libel being slapped in our faces like that. Now, in regard to whether or not he should have platformed him, again, I think that the right is kind of making the same mistake that the left did for so many years, which is thinking that if you just ignore certain things, it'll go away. It's not going to go away. Nick Fuentes is ascendant right now. And the real question is, why is he ascendant, given what he has said on the record? And what is the best way to engage without promoting that type of hateful ideology? And I think that's what Tucker Carlson is attempting to do. He has admitted to Megyn Kelly that there are definitely things he wished he did differently in that interview. But the way that there's been this organized effort to totally destroy him because he had that conversation, I'm sorry, I know that there are multiple outlets, both legacy media and independent media, that have interviewed and done softball interviews of literal war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu, who has literally slaughtered innocents in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon. And there hasn't been any pushback, okay, from anyone in regard to those interviews taking place. You want to know why? Because he's a prime minister of a foreign country. Regardless of how disgusting he is, he's going to be interviewed. And the question is, how are those interviews going to be handled? Or is he going to be asked difficult questions or softball questions? He only grants the interviews to the softball questions.
Okay, Klay, I know Klay has to go. So I want to just give you, Klay, just final quick response to that before we let you go.
Look, I don't think anybody should be criticized for anyone they choose to interview on their own shows. And I also have the same position as you within that context, Piers. I wouldn't, and we haven't, we've got the biggest radio show in the country. I wouldn't put him on our program. But I also understand why Tucker decides to have conversations. And I would rather people have those conversations in public, even if I disagree with them. I would want the broadest possible context. I just don't think there's much to be gained from his arguments on my show. I imagine the same thing that you would say about that show. And then I think there's also a distinction on Netanyahu. I mean, he is the head of a state. I think everybody should interview Benjamin Netanyahu. Piers, I bet if Kim Jong-un called you up and said, hey, we want to do a North Korea sit-down, you would do a sit-down with North Korea's leader, not because you agree with him or think that he has been treating the people of North Korea well, but just because that is a valid argument that he should be able to make to his larger context. Like, you should talk to the leaders of states, whether it's Putin, whether it's Kim Jong-un, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Vladimir, whoever it is,
Clay,
right? So I think there's a pretty big distinction between that.
The problem with Netanyahu, though, is that he only gets interviewed by people who are willing to fillet him live on air. That's the problem with Netanyahu. I totally agree with you.
First of all, that's a very different show.
Be interviewed. But that's what we've been seeing.
I think that, in my opinion, Benjamin Netanyahu is not a war criminal. He should be able to travel to the United States and, frankly, anywhere in Europe. There's a very huge difference having toured the sites between what happened at Nova and what happened in the kibbutzes in Israel and what the response that Israel put in place to Hamas after they kidnapped 250 terrorists. To me, that equivocation is not morally remotely justified. And so I think that's frankly, crazy.
Slaughter tens of thousands of innocent kids.
Okay, so again, you see where the first question that Piers asked, it's, so what side are you on? Very straightforward. Are you on the Tucker side or the Ben Shapiro side? And he does not answer immediately. He just starts deflecting about his own personal problems on CNN. Okay, we get that. And again, notice how instead of like actually discussing immediately whose side he's on, he starts talking about Israel and Israel has a right to defend itself. What? Again, just goes to show. So obviously he's on the Ben Shapiro side. I mean, that's, if you start defending Israel after a question like that, it kind of indicates what side you're on. And again, he's just deflecting and talking about anti-Semitism when a lot of the criticism from the Tucker Carlsons of the party is we don't want to be funding what's going on. We don't want to be funding what Israel is doing. Now, again, people like Klay Travis and Ben Shapiro, that's really what I think it comes down to in many cases. But of course, it's no. It's all about you have to defend Israel. It's actually not about anti-Semitism in a lot of cases. And again, he lists every single propaganda point. And again, to be clear, the question was not even about Israel. Okay, he starts saying Israel's right to defend itself, the horseshoe theory, the left and the right, they all hate Israel. Well, actually, in a lot of cases, it's not about hating Israel. It's about actually, we don't want to be funding what Israel is doing because what they're doing is been condemned by a large portion of the world. So that means you're just extreme if you don't support Israel? I mean, what is that? What is that? It's very bizarre. And again, literally every single propaganda point he said. I mean, if Israel put down its weapons, you would have peace. They'd be destroyed. If everyone else put down their weapons, it would be, or if Israel put down its weapons, it would be a nuclear war. Again, just totally ridiculous propaganda points. What else does he say? Again, he says, if you believe in human rights, maybe the craziest thing he said, if you believe in human rights, you have to support Israel. Wow. Okay, just look what Israel's doing and tell me if it looks like they're really respectable of human rights right now. But okay, that's fine. You can say that. And again, notice how Piers brings up platforming. Again, it's totally ridiculous. And even how Tucker Carlson recently, he even challenged Mark Levin, for example, to a debate. And Mark Levin was like, I don't want to platform him. Bro, Tucker's platforming you. Again, this is the thing with the Nick Fuentes interview, where you can criticize how Tucker was not harder on him in the interview. That's totally fair, and I would probably agree with that. But the idea that, it's a platforming thing, he has his own audience. He has a way bigger audience than Mark Levin, okay? So the idea that people are platforming each other, it's ridiculous. The people like Mark Levin saying he just want to platform so-and-so, they have a bigger audience. You're not platforming anybody. What are you talking about? And again, the idea that, and it is true, people like Nick Fuentes are ascending, and Tucker Carlson's ideas are ascending in the party. Why is that? Well, maybe it's because a lot of the party, like the Ben Shapiro wing, the Randy Fine wing, the Mark Levin wing, you are not able to criticize Israel. And when it's super unpopular what Israel is doing, what does it lead to? It leads to more extremist ideologies like Nick Fuentes rising up through this. So again, this is the problem with the Ben Shapiros. They really did create this sort of monster in a sense. Because they haven't allowed criticism of Israel and how it's basically a taboo, it leads to more extremist rhetoric. And it's totally on them, which is why I have no sympathy for what they've been saying. And I address this. You guys can check my previous videos on this. And again, the main criticism of Tucker, I think, is how he conducted the interview with Nick Fuentes, how he wasn't difficult enough in the interview. But the thing is, they're just calling him, like Randy Fine calling him the most dangerous anti-Semite in America, Mark Levin going on this insane tirade, calling him a fascist, Nazi. I mean, it really is a little like over the top insane. Like, do you need to relax? Like, what are you talking about saying stuff like this? And again, the knives are out for Tucker, figuratively, obviously, in a sense. But again, it's really because, to me, it's because they don't like how he's criticizing Israel. That, to me, is my opinion. But again, you guys can let me know. Tucker really, what is the main reason why they are really going after Tucker Carlson here? And because again, you have to understand, Tucker even did his interview with Vladimir Putin a year ago. He got a lot of criticism for that, but they're really canceling him now just because of his interview with Nick Fuentes. And it's because I think he's platforming more anti-Israel guests on his show, and that is a major no-no to the Ben Shapiro wings of the Republican Party. And again, of course you should be able to be critical of Israel without being anti-Semitic. But again, this is the thing. People like the Ben Shapiros and the Mark Levins, they don't understand this at all. They think it's totally anti-Semitic even to criticize Israel. It's just a fact. It's just a fact what they've been. If you listen to what they say, if you listen to Mark Levin's speech he gave at the Republican Jewish Coalition recently, it's very clear that it's criticism of Israel that they have a major, major problem with. And again, and Anna Kasparian then makes a great point where she's like, hey, everyone gives these softball interviews to Netanyahu, and Loki's taking a pot shot at PBD there, saying he goes to the places where he knows it's going to be a softball, which is why he goes on Brandon Tatum's podcast, PBD's podcast, and Fox News, for example, because he knows he's getting a softball interview. And that's the thing. You can interview whoever you want, but you got to actually hold them to account. And again, the idea that it's so amazing, Klay Travis, there's a huge difference with what Israel did in Gaza to what Hamas did on October 7th. Well, again, as Anna Kasparian says, they leveled the Gaza Strip. It's completely destroyed and annihilated. So, again, it's pretty obvious Klay Travis is with the more pro-Israel wing of the party and the Randy Fines, even if he's too scared to even, say that, because he doesn't want to alienate a part of his audience. So, it really is pretty wild stuff. I mean, I think Anna Kasparian in this debate did a really good job, basically calmly, disintegrating Klay Travis's argument, saying, we can't be allowing this sort of rhetoric in the party. Well, my question to Klay Travis would be, are you able to criticize Israel without being anti-Semitic? That's my question to people like Klay Travis. I don't know what he would say. But again, the discussion is good, and I don't agree with Tucker Carlson. But the idea that the smears against him are, he's a raging anti-Semite, he's a fascist Nazi, coming from people inside of the Republican Party, it really is kind of wild stuff. It really is pretty wild. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section. I think that Anna Kasparian did a very good job here. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure to like and subscribe. It's super good for the algorithm, and it comes And again, guys, we've been at 3,000 subscribers. It really is unbelievable. Thank you guys so much for all the support. And if you want to become a member, hit the join button below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys later.